Hello, I'm a woman in my early 20s who recently got a job. I have a boyfriend of 2 years. My boyfriend and I met at an antique shop. He was the owner and I was his part-time employee. My boyfriend is 7 years older than me who used to work for an advertising company. But he fell in love with traveling and quit his job to go around the world for several years. Once I saw his picture of those days, where he had bushy hair and tan skin, looking like a homeless person. Anyway, during that time, he went to a famous flea market in Lisbon called Woman Thief Market. There, he became enamored with old antique household items that led to opening up current antique shop. Although it is an antique shop, it's not a grand store that sells expensive items, but a shop that mainly sells small and household knickknacks. People in interior decorating or retro collectors frequently visit his shop. Shop was close to our school and I often did the window shop. Being on my way to the classes, one day, I saw a wanted sign posted in front of the store. Although the term seemed good for easy work, but the wanted sign was up for over a month, as if no work was hired. I had no interest. But the restaurant where I worked part-time had gone out of business, so I had to find a new job. I applied that and got an interview there. You're a student in college near here. However, I'm not looking to hire a part-time, but a full-time worker. The work here is not difficult, but I am away from the store often, so I need a reliable full-time person. My boyfriend traveled to Europe or India once or twice a year. On a buying trip, he needed to examine and verify any person to purchase them. Thus, while he was abroad, he needed a full-time employee. In his absence, he needed a reliable person who could manage the store, take care of the bills, taxes, and customs clearances. As I immediately needed a job, I explained honestly about my dire situation. In truth, the financial situation for my family wasn't good. My mom had passed away when I was going on 7th grade. I had to support my unemployed father and 2 younger brothers. I had to be responsible for my tuition living expenses. So when one looked closely, I was not in a position to be in college, went on to a silver of hope, and struggled to go to college. At that time, as soon as my classes were over, I would work at the restaurant, and when I returned home I would do word processing or milk deliveries. On top of that, I had to study hard to secure scholarship, because without I couldn't afford the high tuition. Thus for me, going on dates or going dancing in a nightclub was out of my scope. Every college life was a luxury I could not afford, even though I gritted my teeth to stretch to cover my expenses. By working at all hours, my financial status was negative. Every year, my student loans increased, and if I wasn't careful even for a second, I'll be bankrupted at once. And we would all be out on the streets. Honestly, I felt like quitting college to find a stable job many times a day. However, if I did that, my life that I worked so hard to endure would collapse once and for all. After listening to all this, my boyfriend decided to hire me. He said whenever I had classes, either he or another part-timer could be hired. I felt so grateful to him. The work was not hard at all. I would clean up the salvaged items or do the repairs as needed. After the first stage of work, I would take photos of the product and upload on the homepage and display them in the shop for bulk purchases from the factory and India, such as cups or glass items. And stainless steel kitchen utensils were alerted to the small shop operators in the regional areas. My boyfriend providing me a mere part-timer, with a lot of support both mentally and materially. When I was short with my tuition, he paid it. And when I needed a large sum for my family problems, he would lend me without hesitation. He helped so that I would not lose courage. As time passed, our relationship developed romantically. Until then, I was surrounded by people who leaned on me. But now I had someone to lean on. We agreed that we would get married when I graduated, and when my younger brothers got jobs. Finally, the time had a wrong. When I mentioned my marriage, my father seemed uneasy. That was expected, because he relied on me to take care of him. Without me, he would have to take over. My two younger brothers had graduated from high school and were working. They were happy that I was getting married. They cheered, saying that since I had a hard life, I deserved happiness by having my own family with my husband. With my younger brother's blessings, I was able to decide to get married. The problem was, however, getting the permission from my boyfriend's parents. In truth, I could not afford to follow the marriage tradition of bringing wedding presents as a dowry even after getting married. I couldn't just abandon my own family financially. I was very nervous when I visited my boyfriend's house. My future father-in-law was a mild person when he heard that with scholarship as a working student, I graduated from college and secured a good job, he said. He was proud of me and complimented me several times. However, my future mother-in-law was the opposite. As the saying goes, generosity exists in the food. Solar kids from affluent families tend to take care well and have good personalities. Kids raised in poor families are lacking in many places. Why did it choose to marry someone who worked under him? My future mother-in-law tried to talk less harshly than usual, but she made her own opinion of me very clear. I was expecting her this approval while working at my boyfriend's place. I saw her often. I knew that she didn't like me from the start. A few days later, she called me to meet her outside, without letting my boyfriend know about it. I knew then what was to come. I was going to avoid it. It was a hurdle that I had to jump over someday. I'll just get to the point. So listen well. I'll never permit this marriage. Oh my goodness. How could I approve of you in such a bad state? You have a father who sucks blood like a leech together with your younger brothers. How could you even think to marry from a family like yours? Why did you seduce my innocent son for money to get you out of your dump? Let's say that I give in to you 100 times, but wow! I couldn't believe that you were born with a bad omen to bring death to your spouse. Do you know how strong your black energy? Any man associated with you will end up dying. How could I let my precious son to marry someone like you? I'll never let it happen for that life of me, so don't even dream and get off my son right now. What trash to get stuck on my son. My boyfriend's mom spit out all kinds of hateful words and briskly left the cafe. I just said, I have the destiny to cause my husband death in this modern day. How could she be against me for that kind of reason? It was reliable yet said, for a moment I thought if this was the problem, I may not be able to marry. Why? Because my boyfriend's mom was a die-hard believer of shamanism. Every time my boyfriend went abroad on a buying trip, his mom came to the store. Then she started performing weird rites. She would spray rice wine all over the inside, or fill every hole on the wall with raw meat, and even sprinkle the floor with chicken blood. Posting paper amulet in the store became her everyday tour. She was satisfied. Even with all that, she brought a chairman to the store to physically perform a bizarre ritual ceremony. Of course, it was kept secret from her son. It was evident that she would not let us get married at all costs. I had no choice but to tell my boyfriend about my meeting with his mom, what born to cause Basil death. These days, who believes in such a prestigious things? Wow, wise mother like that. Don't worry, I'll talk to her. It won't be easy to your mom. Her beliefs in superstition are greater than faith, to tell you the truth. While you're abroad, your mom came to the store and performed rite with amulet, including bringing the shaman. My boyfriend, everything that had happened. When he heard them, he was shot. You should have told me when such a thing happened. How could you just watch and let her brings in a charm and to perform such a ceremony in my store? My boyfriend became enraged and went home. That day he had a big fight with his mom and came back to the store at nearly at midnight. He found me waiting at the store and told me that everything was taken care of and not to worry. I thought the problem was solved, however. A few days later, his mom came to see me at my work then. She blatantly ordered me to come down to the company lobby as a new employee. I was in the middle of company training, and I couldn't just leave right then. Apologet very polite to her saying that I couldn't come down and would come to see her at home later. Then about 10 minutes later, my manager in charge of training me told me to go down immediately to the lobby because a woman was throwing a big tantrum, asking for me. At that moment, my heart stopped. I was full of anxiety, as she was a reckless person with no shame to do bizarre things. And I didn't know what she would do. All the way to the lobby, my strength went out of my shaky legs when I got to the lobby. The floor was covered with red blood. It was her doing. She sprayed the lobby floor with blood and was sprinkling red beans on top of it. The security guards were struggling to drag her outside. She was screaming at the top of her lungs, resisting trying to stay inside. "Come out, you bitch, who is a leech clinging and sucking blood from my son, come out." I was so embarrassed that I felt like I was going to have a heart attack. I was so worried about how I could come to work after all this, and what would I do if she continued on in the future? As soon as she saw me, she attacked me like a hyena zeroing on a prey and grabbed a hold of my hair. "You have nothing but a body, yet you covet my son. You're born with bad luck and trying to devour my son. Get away from my son, you bitch." Fortunately, the security guard separated her from me. But it was after I was in a total mess. I was so ashamed, scared and resentful that I couldn't stand her anymore. So I called my boyfriend. "Honey, please come right now. Your mom is creating a big scene at my work." Shortly my boyfriend rushed over. In the meantime, his mom had calmed down a lot. And when she saw her son, she ran away. Only the cleaning ladies were left struggling to cleaning up the blood his mom had sprayed on the floor. "Honey, can you see that that's the chicken blood that your mom sprayed on the floor?" Until just before she grabbed my hair, screaming that I was destined to cause your death. "I can't stand this. I love you very much, but I can't live like this." I plopped down and sobbed. My boyfriend couldn't say anything. He was speechless at the inexcusable acts committed by his mother. He probably did. To know what kind of person his mother was, even though she acted mainly at other people, probably acted as a perfect parent in front of her son. In the meantime, I'll be the only one to suffer that night. We went to his parents' house. Then we told his father about that day's fiasco. His father dragged his wife out and made her write a promissory note in front of me to never bother me nor come to my work in the future. She readily signed a note. As if she was afraid of her husband, he went its tail between the legs. She even apologized to me. That incident was put to the rest, and for a while, everything was calm. I thought his mom changed a lot after the incident. However, I was mistaken. A few days later, I found out that it was overthrough. Another incident. I had been very busy at work and visited my fiancé's store after some time later to surprise him. I went by without any notice. He wasn't at the store. I saw a lady I had never seen before working alone. I thought she must be a new employee and asked where her boss was. Then she asked me who I was. When I said I was his fiancé, she let out a sneering chuckle. She said she came to do a blind date with my fiancé, arranged by his mother. At that moment, his mom came out of the office. When she saw me, she smiled slightly. I suspected that she was up doing something. "Mother, what is all this? You arranged a blind date." "What do you mean? What is all this? Did I tell you that I'll never let you marry my son? So stop dreaming and get out of here." I was dumbfounded. However, when I saw the lady sneering beside his mom, she looked familiar. She looked a lot like his mom. "Wait. You two look alike." As if mother and daughter. When I say that, my future mother-in-law became flustered and took the girl outside and rushed her to leave. It was very odd. It was also strange that she got started at my words. She did not act her usual self, where she would attack me with the barrage of curses. Yet she readily took the girl outside. I suspected that she was scheming something. So I started to follow his mom every weekend. As a faithful worshiper of shamanism, She visited the shaman's place every week. There I saw something I should not have witnessed. I got scared. If I told my fiancé about what I had discovered, unbelievable aftermath would result. However, I couldn't ignore and cover it up either, so I decided to reveal everything to my future father-in-law and went to their house with my fiancé. Her previous attack against me. She treated me nicely in front of her husband. She even prepared a table full of food for me. When my future father-in-law beckoned me to eat, I kindly asked him to listen to me first, then I gave him the photos I'd taken while following his wife. In truth, I hesitated for a long time. However, I felt that you have to learn the truth. The photos I showed his wife, going to the shaman's house, grocery shopping, and going into motel together. My father-in-law's face flushed when he saw the pictures and threw them into his wife's face. He glared at her, as if he was about to kill her, and screamed at her, "What have you been doing?" Seeing the pictures his wife's face proves. She frantically picked up the photos off the floor and said that it was all a misunderstanding. She denied that, while it was true that she visited the shaman often. But she said, "The slight bitch is slandering me just because I'm against her marriage. Please believe me. How could you not know me? When I would live together for over 30 years. When you were away in Saudi Arabia for over 7 years to make money. I raised our song all alone and never complained once. It's so unfair to accuse me. How could you connect me to the chairman?" Really, his wife even shed tears lying. My future father-in-law seemed slightly affected by her tears. Then, his wife grabbed that chance and started to attack me. "You shouldn't be doing this, even though I was against your marrying my son. How could you lie and slander me like this? I know that you hate me, but trying to break up a happy home is an evil thing. A saying that when a wrong woman comes in, the household would be bankrupt. So those words are so accurate. Why is that such a wicked one comes into our home? How can you say that? I'm scheming all this. Actually, why are you like this towards me, turning me into a bad person? Did you say a home will be bankrupt if a wrong woman comes into the family? However, I don't think that applies to me. I know you would know better, and mother, I think you should stop acting. I don't know about others, but you can't deceive me. How dare you attack me? Do you think you can act this way and still be my daughter-in-law? How dare you do not know your place and be so obnoxious?" She shouted. Enraged as if she was about to murder me, she yelled so righteously that others would think I was the guilty one. However, I couldn't be pushed around like that, because I deeply resented all the horrible things she had done to me. As for me, I don't have to be your daughter-in-law. In fact, I thought about quietly breaking off, if it would be solved by my keeping it quietly. I would have done that. However, would your horrible acts stop? I don't know, but whoever your son brings to marry, and if you don't like her, you would act terribly to her, just as you had done to me. So I couldn't let it pass by, because ultimately it is your son who would suffer. I couldn't let the man I love suffer any longer. Since you are saying that I am scheming, this time I'll have to show a more definitive proof, so that you could no longer continue to deceive father and your son. And you must remember one thing. It is not a wrong woman who comes into the house to bankrupt it. It is due to the person who commits wrongdoings, just like what you have done. The rest must be sorted out within your family. When things are settled, call me. I left a recorder with my future father-in-law and left the house. As I was leaving, I heard something crashing from the house, all the way outside, including my future mother-in-law screams. Later, my fiancé called me. He said that his father was filing for a divorce and filed for damages against shaman. The recorder, I gave it to his father and had a conversation between his wife and shaman. Two of them have been having an affair for a long time, and secretly his wife was committing adultery. The two even had a child together. And that was the girl I saw in my fiance's store posing as his blind date. His mom disguised her as her son's date. But when I suspected their relationship, She scrambled to send her away regardless for her to bring his hidden half-sister to Pove. As my rival was perverse, while her husband was slavering away in scorching Saudi Arabia. She had been living with the shaman as her lover, and even got pregnant. It was so shocking when I found out. I seriously considered to just keep it a secret. It was such a big deal that would be a bomb show. However, my fiancé was the first person in my life whom I could lean on, and I wanted to repay his kindness, even if we must part to this incident. How could it love a woman who revealed his parents' wrongdoings, even if it was done with good intentions? If the same happened to me, I truthfully would not be able to do so. As I predicted, my fiancé asked me for us to separate temporarily. I agreed probably we would be breaking up like this. However, I have no regrets. Someday, I believe that my fiancé would realize my sincerity. Thank you for listening to an outport of my embroiled heart. I wish all you listeners for your happiness and good health.